So it might surprise you that in the context of EMS, we would be the least bit concerned with anything of the nature of peanut butter and jelly. But remember all those drugs that you carry around in that nice little teal green bag? They were all approved by the FDA, and FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration. So here we have food. Now, you won't find this in a PB&J, as it's affectionately referred to, peanut butter and jelly. You will not find this likely in your locked, controlled temperature drug box in your ambulance. At least not on an East Texas ambulance. I believe that's specifically forbidden. But you might find it in your lunchbox, your partner's lunchbox, or maybe your wife packed it in there for you. If all else fails, you might find it at the store. Now, we're always concerned in EMS about the actions of the drugs that we could potentially give to someone, and so regarding a PB&J, it is in the class of food. Now, we can break that down into the specifics like carbohydrate, starch, protein, etc. With all the carbohydrates in there, if you're on the Atkins diet, not going to be for you. Now, what are the therapeutic effects given the actions? Well, we can put that together pretty easily. It will gratify your very angry stomach. You often, no doubt, come across this working in EMS. And as a tertiary benefit, it increases your blood glucose level. Outstanding. So that gives us an idea of when we might give it to someone. Indications: hypoglycemia, duh, and hunger of unknown etiology. Now, when would it possibly be a bad idea, given that we know when we might give it, when would it be a bad idea to give it? Contraindications. First, if you're allergic or sensitive to peanuts and you eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you will be moving along in your protocol book to the allergic reaction / anaphylaxis protocol. So be prepared with some Benadryl, epinephrine, and now would be a great time for an H2 specific antihistamine like famotidine, Pepsid. Of course, you're not going to want to give a sandwich to someone who can't swallow, and unresponsiveness kind of goes along with that. Precautions: if you have celiac disease and therefore are hypersensitive to gluten, you do not want to take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It is stocked with it. Also, if you have no gag reflex, that's like the contraindication above. Now, side effects. You may have dutifully observed the contraindications and the precautions and found in the individual to whom you are going to give this peanut butter and jelly sandwich that none exist. Yet, sometimes things happen. Sometimes it's as small of a deal as a sugar rush and then a crash and then they're conked out for a little while. But if you perhaps used poor judgment in choosing the ingredients, it may not taste good. You may have come from, as a paramedic, like old school thought, that if you give morphine, you need to give Phenergan like right alongside it in order to prevent nausea and vomiting. Well, if you give a really bad tasting peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you may be using a lot of antiemetics. A lot. Now, given that, how much are we going to give? A unit dose? What is this? It's a lousy sandwich. Just make one and you give it to them. We may get into portions of doses later, but that's going to be on a specific patient-by-patient basis. You may repeat it every 3 to 5 minutes. Of course, the idea is to titrate to effect either hunger goes away or blood glucose comes up to an acceptable level. Now, in a pediatric or an elderly patient, remember the protocol we have in the back of our protocol book for elderly patients. All of the older people get half a dose of everything. Well, we might do the same thing with that, with our peanut butter and jelly. Run it through the blender if you have to. Now, for obviously a very small child, you might want to give even less than half. Now, anytime that we give anything to somebody, an individual, patient, whatever, we always remember the 5 rights of medication administration. Right patient, right med, right dose, right time might remind us to look and check the date, and make sure that it's not out of date and that there's not like stuff growing in it. And then write route. Bear in mind that the Food and Drug Administration has not approved PB&Js for parenteral use. So this is only PO. It is not to go into IV. Alright. So, given that, how are we going to prepare it? Well, you might have prepared a few drugs like solumedrol, glucagon, where you had to reconstitute them. Well, there's a couple steps in this too. You need a couple slices of bread. You guys, oh yeah, not that. Reconstitution. A couple slices of bread, peanut butter, and jelly. So, we already checked to make sure that the date was correct, and sure enough, there's nothing growing in it yet. And then some of this over here, jelly. Now, bear in mind, while there may be no difference in drugs between the generic and the brand name, if you don't get the brand name stuff, you'll probably be giving a lot of antiemetics with your generic peanut butter and jelly. Now that each ingredient is spread sufficiently on the bread, put them together, and they're reconstituted. That may have looked really simple here, but we're going to make it incredibly complicated in our next video in the series. Now, oh yes, peanut butter, jelly, substitutions as needed. There's such a thing as almond butter. You could put it on a croissant if you wanted to ruin a croissant. But nevertheless, there you have it. My name is Richard Strohacker, and I approve this message.